Hello everyone, welcome to my final impressions of Dark Souls 3. Alright, so the reason why this video is so late is because mainly you have Dark Souls 1 to blame. So, between December and January, that's all I played. That's the reason why you didn't see a lot of videos on my channel. I got into the Souls series, and then, I probably played Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, and actually hated it. Then I played Bloodborne and loved it, and then recently I started Demon Souls and loved it. So, I've beaten Dark Souls 1 to completion, and I've beaten Dark Souls 3, and the reason why this video was so late is because I wanted to complete Dark Souls 3, and the reason for that is because Dark Souls 1 had a problem, and we'll talk about this related to this game. So, for starters, Dark Souls, what is it? Developed by From Software, published by Namco Bandai, not a very good PC port, yeah, whatever. Hard game. That's all you need to know. It's hard. This video is going to be mainly covering a little bit about, for new players, but it's mostly going to be going about the changes that it's made. Because I think by now you should know what to expect from a Souls game. If you want to start playing a Souls game, either get this one when it's really cheap, or just get Dark Souls 1 on a sale. You can get it for $5. As long as you have a controller, you'll be fine. If you don't have a controller, don't bother. Because, well, one of the things with this game, let's actually just take a look at the options menu. If I don't mess it up. I forgot where I'm supposed to go. Anyway, so, still has button prompts, even if you use the keyboard and mouse. I'm not using one because I'm not insane. So, this game has some performance issues. Now, I'm 32 hours in, and some areas in this game... I've beaten the game, by the way. This is New Game Plus. Some areas in this game have heavily impacted the frame rate, although not as much as Dark Souls 1 did. Dark Souls 1 had some huge performance issues. It was mainly because of the game got ported to PC strictly because of a petition, and a lot of people asking for it because they're saying, like, look, we can't port it well to PC, and we're like, you know what, never mind, just forget about it. Just get it on PC, we'll deal with it, we'll mod it, and they did. And we got a great game out of it, and we eventually unlocked the frame rate, and yeah, as long as you play it with the controller, it's still a pretty playable game, although you do need a decent system to run it past 30 FPS. I still have trouble with some areas in that game. But, one of the main things is the performance in later levels. Now, they patched this shortly after launch. It was the Boreal Valley, I believe, cut your frame rate in half hard. Now that's been pretty much fixed. Matchmaking is, PvP is not too laggy. It's not too... I haven't had too many bad experiences. Or hackers, which, by the way they're handling hackers is disgusting in this game. They're basically saying, well, you're responsible for backing up your saves, and if you get those, if you get hacked items, we'll probably ban you, too. Like, that, dropped off hacked players sometimes, which is just great, guys. Good job. There's no cloud saves, either. And it's in your app data folder. Because of course it is. Even though the other games were in the My Documents. So yeah, welcome to Dark Souls. It's not a bad looker, isn't it? No, it's kind of nice. So, going back to what I said earlier. So in Dark Souls 1, I got near the first 2/3 of that game were phenomenal. And then the last third happened, and I hated almost everything about it. The boss fights, it was, oh my god, really, no. No, get away. Rolling is a huge part of this game. We'll get into that in a bit, but the last part of that game was so poorly designed, so awful, so I hate everything about it. A lot of people, will defend it, and, that's fine. There were some cool boss fights, like the Four Kings and Sif wasn't too bad, but the bosses that it hyped up in the opening cutscene were so disappointing. Lost Izalith was a bore fest. The Bed of Chaos was a complete RNG frustration-filled mess. The hardest boss fight in that game was at the halfway point, not at the end. No. The halfway point. Ornstein and Smough. Which, if you want to... That was probably the hardest boss fight I ever fought. The most challenging. The hardest boss fight was the Bed of Chaos because it was just a broken fight. There's a difference between a really hard boss and a really challenging hard boss. Ornstein and Smough really tested your shit. So you're on Kindle this time around instead of Hollow because... reasons. So you look like a regular person, although I don't because... try not to spoil the real ending, like the good one. If you die enough, you'll get like this disgusting raisin face. And then you can actually potentially unlock the good ending. You don't want to heal your sigil. So yeah, Dark Souls 1, the latter half was mixed, I'd say. Now, speaking of Dark Souls 1, actually a lot of areas... Well, I just fucked that up. A lot of areas overlap, which is really cool. Into Dark Souls 1, so you actually go back to Anor Londo. I'm not going to really spoil how, but, like, you're not going to realize at first. You're like, oh, ooh. Because, like, turns out that area has actually been... It's, like, a new area now. Like, it's been completely destroyed. And you find out why when you fight the boss of that area. And, like, take a close look at that boss, because it's quite interesting. But anyway. So you might have heard that, Yes, that was Sigurd. So yeah, a lot of the NPCs cross over. You might have seen Andre earlier. Alright, let's get over here. So you can... NPC quests return, and you could actually have them fight with you, which is cool.
downright worried. But thanks to you, an epiphany has struck me square in the head.
Mini boss over there.
I've unraveled the riddle of this inscrutable lift. On some days,
Let's skip through this. So yeah, Onion Bro makes a return, obviously.
I've got to use my head and think.
I love that guy. Yeah, Andre Astora made a return. I won't spoil any other potential characters, but yeah, it's pretty cool that a lot of them make the return. You cross over the areas. It's kind of like a love letter, like a little bit of fan service here and there. Like, hey, we remember that place. And you know, you do kind of travel to a portion of Lost Isla. Thankfully, it's not the terrible part. As far as bosses go, this is probably one of the more accessible games because the boss difficulty is... It's like... It's averaged better. So, like, the first boss is very challenging, but you can probably beat him within a few tries. And then the second boss is... same kind of thing. Just a couple more tries, maybe.
Oh, you should have waited. Well, it's too late now.
And I like that, because the problem with this, the first game, it really put off a lot of new players. That, like, even if... Okay, like, after you get past the Asylum, the Tauros demon in that game was so insanely hard, like, for new players. So, if you knew to, like, explore some parts of that area, like, where you fought the boss, you might think, like, well, it was actually on, like, a bridge, right? And you had very little space to maneuver. But what you can actually do... First, it was already a beginner's trap, because when you come in, and, like, you try to fight the Tauros demon, you just rush into him, you'll miss the archers that are shooting at your back, which sucks. So you have to climb the ladder. But if you climb that ladder, you can actually do a jump down attack on the Tauros demon, and he can actually come up and fight you, and you actually get some more area, you get, like, more space to actually fight him. Which was cool. So, I think people who discovered that were like, oh, this game has all kinds of tricks, and then you could also know that, you also, if you read some of the messages maybe, if you got, like, on the ground, some of them might say, weak to fires, and you got a lot of fire bombs. So, that was where the point you would either get Dark Souls, or you didn't. And for the longest time, I didn't. And then until a friend came over in December, and basically from December to January, I didn't have any content on my channel because that's all I was playing was Dark Souls 1, I'm sorry. But it was a problem, because it didn't click into a lot of people. That should have been the third boss fight, if anything. Instead it was the Gargoyles, which was actually a really cool fight. You had to fight 2 enemies. It was only, the only fight in the game, aside from Ornstein Small, where you had to fight 2 of a boss. But anyway... So yeah, we just did his quest. Again, we're playing on New Game Plus, so the scaling is a little bit off. It's more in favor of me for the first bit, although some of the enemies can still be a threat. And that's the really cool thing about Dark Souls, is that enemies are always going to be a threat. Like, you cannot play safe all the time. And if you, like, just, like, get lazy and be like, oh, well, I can take a few hits, eventually you don't hone your skills, and you can't go out of practice, and then when you actually fight a really tough fight, again, even if you know the fight, yeah, you'll get slaughtered again, which can suck. Unfortunately, New Game Plus is not nearly as fun as Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 had, like, you had the linear areas at the beginning that would, you know, properly guide you on where you go, because, you know, you could get lost very easily in Dark Souls 3, but in Dark Souls 1, or in Dark Souls 2 even, but in Dark Souls 1, it was quite linear. You were given a pretty clear path of where to go. And now you think, like, oh, that would be terrible for New Game Plus. Actually, no, because what you can do is you can buy something called the Master Key, and you can unlock a bunch of areas. So you can do bosses incredibly quick. You can beat that game in, like 2 hours, an hour, if you can, like, for, like, your average playthrough. 3 hours, maybe. Then, like, speedrun, I don't know, is, like, maybe less than an hour. 2 hours, something like that. World record, something like that. So, New Game Plus is not as nearly as interesting, but it's still... Oh, God. Now, you notice, like, I'm disappearing when I'm rolling here. That's because I have a ring equipped. In fact, I'll show you my equipment in a second. I kind of broke my class because when I was fighting the final boss, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put all my points in Dex, and then I realized, oh, wait, it doesn't scale well. So I was a Pyromancer, still am, but not very good one right now. So I have to get to that area where there's a Covenant, and this Covenant can... change your stats, but you don't know, you might miss, it's very easy to miss, as is the key to even get to this area where I am in. There's a lot of stuff that you can miss in this game, and that's cool, but there's a lot of essential stuff, and you can get lost very easily, and you can be wandering around for hours trying to find out where the hell you're supposed to be going. And I don't really like that in games. Dark Souls 1, the nice thing about that was that it was linear at the start, and then it opened up at the end, so you kind of knew what you were doing. Here, not so much. Now, there's another thing, like, for getting spells. So, it's not unlocked by the start, like it was... Actually, no, it wasn't in Dark Souls 1. But Dark Souls 1, again, it was linear, so you could actually find these guys pretty easily. But the Pyromancy guy was in the depths, and he was in a pretty early point. So, after you beat the Copper Demon, you pretty much could find him very easily. But the problem was that... I'm trying to think right now. I lost my train of thought. No, so, yeah, the problem with the Pyromancer guy here is actually in a really out-of-the-way area. Like, it's in the Undead Settlement, which is kind of where I am. Or not an Undead Settlement, it's... wherever this place is called. I forgot, it's like the sub-area is Undead Settlement. Or somewhere near that. He's somewhere near around here. Actually, I think he's out there to the... Yeah. We can actually find him, maybe. He'll, of course, return to the Firelink Shrine. And we can buy stuff from him, and then when you give him tomes, which is another thing, like, you know, the same way you give, like, ashes to the vendor so she'll unlock more stuff for you, like, you know, essential key for the game that you could miss, you'll get more abilities, and you can use them. So I have, like, the Great Chaos Fire Orb, which I haven't been using, because, again, I put all my points into Dex like an idiot, and I forgot that some weapons don't scale past a certain point too well. I think I was supposed to be on the other side. What's this guy? Oh, God. Okay, Fire Clutch Ring. What's actually... Can I show my equipment from here? Okay, we're fine. Probably safe. So, got a lot of weapons. So, I actually wanted to show you the Greatsword. So, where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Here we go. Refined Destroyer Greatsword. So, you can upgrade your items, you know, to +10, but that's the farthest they'll go this time around instead of, like, I think it was, like, 20 before. And you can also give them, like, an enchantment. So, the thing is before is that you had to go, like, +5, and then you do a fire sword, and then you do, like, +5 again, or whatever. This time around, you can give, like, a fire bone, like, you just need 1 gem, and that's it. So you don't need to collect a bunch of chunks to do it. So, for example, like, it's just like, I want to just get the Sword of Great 10 and give it, like, a fire edge. Well, you just do that. You just get the item that enchants it with fire, and then you're good to go. So the Refined Greatsword, refined means it scales better, but you lose a lot of base damage unless you're scaled with it well, so it doesn't matter. But unfortunately, I forgot that some of my weapons need Strength to Will, the minimum requirement. So at the bottom left there of the stats, the attribute requirements, yeah, I can't use that. So that kind of sucks. I think I can maybe two-hand it, but it doesn't scale well. Currently, I am using my Chaos Blade, which is pretty good. It's a special item. It has pretty good... It has S scaling when you upgrade it to +5. But the Asura's Greatsword is probably one of the few really good Dex weapons that's also a great sword. If you want to do a pure strength build, you know, you can still do that, and that's actually kind of would recommend that, because shields in this game are horrible. You may have noticed I was doing a lot of dodging recently. One of the rings I have is good for PvP, it makes me disappear. It also increases my dexterity to +1. But what you don't want to do is invest in Great Shields, because in the first game, Great Shields was really good. So what you could do in the first game is that you can upgrade your shields, you can actually use a smith, and you can increase the stability. I don't know if that's the same case here. I've tried doing that. It doesn't work properly. Now you may be wondering why I'm having a great shield, a Grasp shield on my back, because if I equip that, and you notice below my endurance bar, that little triple arrow thing, little green bar right there, I get extra stamina. It's great to have you on your back. It adds a little bit of weight, but that's fine. So the problem is, like, you can't. I have not been able to upgrade stability. So what happens is that when you get hit, when you have high stability, you don't lose health, and you don't lose as much endurance. When you do not have a lot of stability, you will lose more health. So even when you block, you'll, like, I guess it goes to your hands. Like, the guy hit you so hard that your hands hurt, right? That's my assumption for it. Trying to figure out how the hell do I get up here. I did it before. But yeah, dodging, you get more invincibility frames in your rolls, which is quite nice. I do like that a lot. But it does leave a heavy reliance on dodging, and I wasn't good at dodging in the first game. Although it's like, you know, you could dodge longer. I'm, of course, at like 50% weight, and this is the 50% weight roll, right away. So, and you can also stagger some people if you roll against them, depending on the size. So that's cool, and you get stuck a lot less, and that's one of the big things I would say about this game is that you die to less bullshit reasons. You get stuck less, you don't... that was a big problem with Dark Souls 1. You would, like, slip on terrain, you would fall, like, very easily off edges because of some bullshit. Oh, God. Thought I was gonna die. I am probably gonna die here. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing right now. I was trying to get to that Pyromancer guy. It's fine, we don't really need him, actually, for this playthrough at all, because, you know, New Game Plus. But that was sort of the area. It was near those guys that was throwing those items at you, so if you're playing Pyromancy build. And that's one of the builds I would recommend. Now, magic is still broken, of course, as always. It's always been. But Pyromancy is kind of like a happy middle. It makes the game a little bit easier without, like, breaking it. Because that's what magic does. And if you play magic in PvP, you're just a shitlord. But Pyromancy is cool. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And you have to actually split your... You know, you did this with magic, but you're splitting your abilities between, your points between pyromancy and your, you know, dexterity in this case, because dexterity, I didn't know this is why I had to respec. Dexterity reduces casting time of your attacks in pyromancy. I don't know if that was the case in the first one, but whatever. Am I talking too much? There's a lot to say about this game. I'm not even, like, scraping the surface. There's so much. There's all, like, the scaling, I think, for new players is pretty good for the bosses. I'm trying to figure out where the hell I'm supposed to go. Oh, you know, I think it was below, but I don't think we're supposed to go there yet. Or are we? I think we could fight that tree boss. Yeah, let's fight the tree boss. You guys actually want to see some combat. Unfortunately, you still have to level up through the Firekeeper over here. I don't think I have enough to level up. Yeah, these are all the stats. We can just quickly scroll through everything, so you can get an explanation of everything, which is nice. So yeah, Vigor has replaced Vitality. Attunement, yeah, that's always the same. It's just more, like, slots for your abilities, endurance, like, resistance, and, like, your just stamina. Vitality, that's the new... endurance, I think, was, like, before it was, like, it would also affect your carry weight now, and your stamina bar. Now Vitality is actually just your, like, the amount of stuff you can carry. Strength and Dex, they kind of work the same. Faith, Intelligence, Luck, yeah, for all, like, Luck, Item Discovery. Faith and Intelligence, like, Faith is, like, the healer, and, like, you can also use attacks in there, but Intelligence is for, like, the magic casting, like, mainly damage, and some buffs. Faith is mostly buffs, and some damage. The classes don't really cross over as they did in Dark Souls 1. You have very distinct classes and builds this time around, which I like that. It makes them different. Unfortunately, though, if you build your class wrong, like I did, it can mean bad things for you, unfortunately. It means that you could screw over your character, and you might not even realize that there's someone that can redo everything for you. So that kind of sucks, and that's the biggest complaint I have about Dark Souls 3, is that a lot of essential stuff is hidden. And some people might like that. That was the big point of the original, and you could always look it up online, but I still think it's a little annoying, because like, I feel like there's almost shame in looking it up. Right? There's shame in getting help for fighting a boss, even though there shouldn't be. See, I can stagger them. See? In Dark Souls 1, I would have died, like, right there. But in here, it's a lot better. Alright, let's go fight that tree dude. And, yeah, talk a little bit more. So, of course, bosses have weaknesses. The later half of the game, I'm happy to say, is not full of dumb gimmicks like the first one was. It doesn't have bullshit bosses and horrible levels. It's fun. It's good. The only gimmick boss is a boss called Yorm the Giant, which is one of the main bosses you have to beat. The hype for these bosses is not very good. At least... So, Dark Souls 1 had, like, this... They had this hype, right, for these bosses. Like, you see these bosses in the cutscenes, you don't fight them way later, until way later in the game, but you hear about them, right? And it builds them up, and then they end up being so disappointing. Their levels are, like, frustrating messes, for the most part. But here, it's not too hyped up to begin with, even though a lot of the bosses are fine. The last boss is actually quite difficult, at least I found it quite difficult. If you do a pure strike build, you're probably gonna beat all these bosses fairly easily, but if you're allocating them to, like, pyromancy and stuff, you might have trouble. So the whole thing with this boss is you have to kill the eggs. If we can even... A lot of the bosses are weak to fire in the beginning, which is why I regret, you know, doing that change for this class. See, we did a heavy damage by hitting that egg. I had no idea, like, you could do that with this boss. When I called someone in, they were doing that. I'm like, oh, that's how you beat this boss. Because otherwise, he takes, like, 1,000,000 hits. Alright, all bosses have pretty much a second phase. Some of the bosses in 1 had a phase change, but it wasn't too significant. The phase changes in here are very significant, like, as you can see here. We're not gonna die, of course, but... Now he has, like, all kinds of different attacks now. Even though I'm killing him pretty quickly. You might not even see it. He has this arm thing that you can also attack. He spins around. Oh, Jesus. Actually, that's never happened to me before. Oh, God. Oh! God damn it. That was just embarrassing. Of course, you still have the delayed heal, which it makes sense to a degree. You have to... You always have to rely on the enemies telegraphing their attacks. Alright, let's try that again. It's pretty embarrassing. I thought I was going to do that in one try. Oh well. Now, as for the game not taking many risks, that's pretty much true. A lot of people have been criticizing the game for that, and I agree. More of the same is not a bad thing, especially when you have a series like Dark Souls that, like, a game like this hard that's very well done doesn't exist anymore. I mean, there's some indie games, but, you know, it doesn't... There's nothing like this good, and that gives you this much content. Even though I did beat in 30 hours, it's because it's like, I've been around the park a couple times with the Souls games. Dark Souls 1, I think, took me between, like, 40 to 60 hours. I would say, like, 50, or maybe even 60 before I finally, like, landed the killing blow on the final boss. And, of course, I did New Game Plus, and that was a lot of fun. And I did a second character, too, so I've put about nearly 100 hours into that game. I played a Pyromancer, and I played a Hunter character without using a bow, just a straight pure build dex. There's a lot less overpowered builds and items in this game. It feels a lot balanced, at least for now. I'm not sure about the PvP meta. Oh god, no, we don't... You know, you've seen most of the trade. Let's actually go... My friend's messaging me on Skype, god damn it. Let's try to see if we can do this part. Now, you fight the 4 Lords of Sin, similar to, like, the 4 or 5 bosses at the end of the other game. And the Lords themselves, all of them... I'm trying to think. Was there one I hated? One was very frustrating that I remember, but the others were fair, but very, very tough. And I can at least say that it's at least a very challenging fight. At least to me it was. The problem with the original is that they just... Some of them were like, okay, one boss in that game... Like, I never beat a boss in my first try in Dark Souls 1, except for the one that they were hyping up, one of them. The final boss was a bit of a joke. You just parry him all the time. He was very easy to kill. The music was great, though. Lost Izalith with its stupid Bed of Chaos was just an RNG bullshit fight. Just absolutely horrible. I was just mentioning now, Nito. Nito fight was... Okay, so to put it this way. So, a boss fight, if it has minions in it, unless you're an MMO, if the boss fight has minions, and the boss does not take the time to leave the fight, so let's say the boss just summons the minions and then jumps away, so you're not fighting the boss, you're now fighting these minions. That's fine. But if the boss has to use minions with himself or herself to make the fight challenging, then it's not a good boss fight, and that's what the Nito fight was. You got interrupted by a bunch of skeletons while you were fighting someone who can attack you through the ground. It was kind of silly, to say the least. And the catacombs, because it was so dark, it was hard to get through. Get to the bonfire. Oh god. They can still attack you sometimes. Well. As you might have seen, a lot of the enemies reset as soon as you touch a bonfire. That's still kept there.
Oh, hello. How do you do? I am Anri of Astora, unkindled like you. This is Horace. Are you too, sir? We are well along the road. Just beyond the flooded woods lies Farron Keep. We seek the cathedral. We may go our step. The next may the link.
So, yeah, these guys can also give you things so you can enter a covenant, so let me just see if I can... Oh, I don't think I can do it here. But anyway. Yeah, it was a problem with the original. Now, the bosses in this game some of them are very difficult, and they're a lot of fun, too. Like, you can have tough bosses that are really difficult, you know, I think, in total, I've killed 4 bosses. 4 bosses with other people. Now, it's the tree boss, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The Pontiff Solomon, who, at the time, I just completely destroyed me. Like, that guy, I couldn't fight him. Like, I just got the crap kicked out of me. With his double sword attacks. And then his cloning in Phase 2, oh my god. Then it was the second to final boss, the Lord of Cinder. No, sorry, not the Lord of Cinder, that's actually the final boss. The Sun and this tag team, basically, of magic and flame users. Just, oh god, it was a nightmare. And then the final boss I got help with, because, you know, I'm just the worst. Mainly because my sword was very slow hitting. It was like a slow wind-up, and that guy would attack me incredibly fast. I just ended up switching to this blade, because it's just so much better. Now, one problem I have with this game, I mentioned that a lot. One problem, yeah, there's a lot, but I still end up liking it a lot. One of the biggest problems is that you can, like in Dark Souls 1, you can kind of run past a lot of areas, and it just leads to the overall level design. Dark Souls 1 had a cool level design where you had these long treks to get back to these areas, or... Yeah, there were long treks to get to each bonfire, but they had a few enemies. This place has short treks between bonfires, but a lot of enemies. And that's a problem, because I end up just running past them. Dark Souls 1, the first time you were in an area, and you had, like, you know, you had a lot of souls, you had humanity on you. You didn't want to screw up, right? So you would carefully inch your way through levels. Here, I'm just running through them. Running through them. I've probably missed a lot of stuff, and I've missed fighting a lot of dudes. And, you know, if I've missed a lot of content, so be it, because that's pretty much how you're... that's a punishable thing. That, like, I feel like, you know, that's worth the punishment, right? That you know, if I'm gonna skip content, I'm gonna skip content, like the good stuff. But it's still an issue, especially with those essential items, because, I mean, for optional content, I can get that. But for essential stuff, especially since the game feels like it's encouraging me to run away, oh god, like now, like, why would I want to fight these guys in this swamp? It's a horrible idea. I'm getting poisoned right now. Briefly mentioning the healing system, you have flasks for mana and you have flasks for health. I don't have them equipped for some stupid reason, because I'm playing it really badly. You also get extra shards like in the first game, but you start off with, I believe, 3 flasks. That's good. In the first game, you had to rely on life gems, which was... sorry, the second game, you had to rely on life gems, which was a really terrible idea. Just an absolutely awful idea. I think I'm entirely in the wrong area. Anyway. So, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, this is actually an area you go to later after you've go to the church, and I'm trying to find out where I went to the church. Oh, you know what? It was in the other area. This is the swamp area. I'm not in the... Yeah. There's a lot of places to go in this game, so it's very hard for me to remember where to go, but yeah, the original had, I feel, great level design, but later on it just didn't end up well. And here, some of the level design just it encourages just cheesing and running past everything, which is a shame. Yeah, we actually got to fight a mage. I was going to a area which was actually where the first Lord of the second Lord of Cinder, I think you fight is. No, it was the first, and yeah, that fight was a bitch. Basically, you had to fight 3 dudes at once that were like respawning, like they would revive, but they would actually hit and fight each other sometimes. So you had to use them against each other. And then what happens is after you do that, they combine, and then they get their second phase. And the Lord of Cinders, they use they have like the second phase is mostly something to do with fire. So they would, and what I like about this game and how it uses the second phase is that it'll keep all the attacks, but it'll sometimes add like variations on those attacks. So for example, oh Jesus Christ, oh my God, fuck these crabs. So so one of the things with that fight is that, you know, okay, so he would go around and he would do like these kind of hard to dodge spinning sword attacks, right? And he was very fast with them, and he would, like, strike, and he would, like, dash across the field, and it was cool, right? Like, this is what you do in the first phase, you know, the 3 of them. And then, when he got to the second phase, he would have a fire variant. So, he would do all that, but with fire, and sometimes when he would attack forward, like, you know, with the sword, you dash forward, and, you know, that's that. But with that attack, with that second phase, he leaves a fire trail behind him. So you can no longer just simply backdash behind him, because you'll get burned. You have to change up your tactics just a little bit, and I like that because it's not like introducing you to like it's an entirely new fight, like it's a similar fight but just a variation on it. Oh, we got the tome. Nice. It's kind of worthless to me, but that's cool. I like that. I think the boss designs and the boss fights for the most part are very well designed. I didn't feel like for the most part that they were cheesing, like they were terrible or horribly designed. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to get into a building around here. I'm trying to figure out where. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to take a left and not go straight ahead. Yeah, again, there's so many areas in this game. There's so many places to go. It's easy to get lost. Oh, I think this is the wrong place. Oh God, here we go. One of these guys. You notice there's a lot of enemy designs. Yeah, there's a lot of different enemy, like, you know, it scores a lot of points with me with enemy variety, good weapon play. Like, a lot of people say, like, Dark Souls is hard for, like, a stupid reason. Like, no, it's because weapons have weight. Like, wouldn't that make sense? Like, you can't, like, you play some game like Darksiders, and I'm not in Darksiders. Darksiders is amazing. But War has this giant sword, right, that he wields around like a frickin' reed. Like, it's so, he makes it look easy, right? I'm carrying this like katana, and I'm even not that fast with it. I'm slower than he is with that giant sword, and that kind of makes sense. Like, this is a dark fantasy grounded with some sort of medieval reality, right? So it takes, like, you know, the weapons and how you use and how you fight very seriously, but, you know, you of course keep like monsters and magic and stuff like that. It kind of reminds me of the idea lore of The Witcher. There's the suspension of disbelief, right? But there's stuff that keeps you, like, grounded in to its world. You know, just like a fantasy, but something that you can, like, you can understand its rules very easily, and it's not like some kind of bullshit that doesn't make sense. Although I do feel like that some of these bosses have abnormal strength, like they're faster, like I have swords sometimes bigger than they do, or they have swords bigger than me, and they're about my size and scale, yet they can swing it way fucking faster. I think this is the right area. No, it's not. Cool! Jesus Christ. Again, it's like because you have this great roll, it's recommended that you just roll past them. Good lord, dude. Holy shit. There's so many guys here. I'm trying to get to the boss so I can just fight him, show you guys, like, another boss in this game. We might not be able to do that, or might, have to skip ahead. Is he up here? No. This is where I was before. Oh my god. But yeah, it's a good game. I think the PvP has been fleshed out a little bit more to be a lot better. It's, you know, certainly better than it was than Dark Souls 1 in terms of, like, connectability and, like, lag. It's just a lot better. Dark Souls 1, to this day, pretty much has the hacking problem, although it's not as common, but you will be fighting a bunch of... If you're not fighting hackers, you're going to be fighting people who are either way weaker or way stronger than you. Rarely did I have an even fight. It's a good game. It took me forever to really like, yeah, it's a really good game, but I feel like they've taken some liberties with the story. They've cheapened out a little bit. They've just said, like, you know what, now we're just gonna kind of make the game like how people want it. We're not gonna really add anything new or experiment. And they do some experimenting here and there, but it's not nowhere nearly as much as, like, something like Dark Souls or Demon Souls did. Like, Dark Souls actually differentiated a lot differently than Demon Souls. That's why it's called, well, it's a spiritual successor because they can't really use the word Demon Souls. They can't make a Demon Souls 2. I believe that's Sony property, or, like, it's, like, Atlas and Sony, something like that. I believe Namco bought the rights from Atlas, and Sony has the property of Demon Souls. But yeah, it's definitely worth a purchase if you at all like Dark Souls 1. Some people say they like Dark Souls 2 better. I disagree. Like, well, I mean, I disagree with them thinking that it's better, because Dark Souls 2 had a lot of problems. Although I did play Skull of the First Sin, so take that with what you will. Some people say Skull of the First Sin made the game pretty bad, and also fix it at the same time. Yeah, anyway, guys, sorry I couldn't find the, mage. Like, I'm gonna be shouted at the comments, like, you missed him, he was right there. I'm sorry. I think I'm actually on the other side, though. It's a lot of fun. Just, the TLDR version is that it's a ton of fun to play, and I'm wandering in the same area for goddamn ever, and I should just end the video right here. But, anyway, yeah, it's good. It's very good if you like the Soul series. For new players, I'd still recommend playing Dark Souls 1 because it's actually a lot easier for new players, in a way, unless you count that Taurus team. If you just learn how to play it, like how to learn the mechanics, it's not that bad. In fact, here it's really difficult at the beginning. It's a lot more difficult, like, in terms of scale. But if you really are into the fact that you can get, like, you know, 40, 50 hours out of it on your first try, if you want a game that's tough but fair, for the most part, if you want something that has, like, you know, great atmosphere, just dripping with, like, character and story, without, like, you know, shoving it into your face with cutscenes, if you want something with amazing combat that makes the game challenging but also a lot of fun, give Dark Souls 3 a shot. Or Dark Souls 1, you know. Both of them do pretty much the same in terms of the reward to the player. Alright, guys, I'm going to be trailing on and on at this point, so I'll see you next time. I'm out.